Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Miss Angler's biology class. I am Miss Angler, and in today's video, we are going to be looking at animal cells, the basics edition. Now, this particular video is for beginners, so if you are needing a more advanced video, please go and have a look at Animal Cells Advanced. This video is particularly for grade 8s and 9s as an introduction to the topic. Now, as always, if you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn your notifications on. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Now, let's get into the content of today's video. The first thing I want you to familiarize yourself with when we look at an animal cell is the overall shape of an animal cell. Now, this particular one has sort of a circular shape to it. I want you to know that animal cells particularly come in irregular shape. In other words, they don't always have the same shape. They're not all identical. Often they don't have what we call geometric shapes. So they're not square or rectangular. They're often irregular around the edges. Now, there are a lot of similarities between animal cells and plant cells, but we're going to look at what makes them different and what components they're actually missing that plant cells have, but animal cells don't. Let's take a look at the components of animal cells. So let's take a look at the first component of a cell, which is the cell membrane. So if we have a look at our diagram on the side here, you will see a cell membrane encompassing and surrounding our cell. If we zoom in on a piece of that cell membrane and we go a little bit closer, you can see this structure over here. Now you will notice that it is made up of two layers, and the layers are sort of lined up tail to tail with one another. And one of those little structures is called a phospholipid. And these are the building blocks of a cell membrane, which we will go into a lot more detail in the advanced animal cells video. Now, when we look into the specific functions of a cell membrane, we already know, as we've stated, that it forms the outer boundary, it surrounds the contents of the cell, and most importantly, it is selectively permeable, which means it has the ability to select and decide what goes into the cell and what leaves the cell. So it's like a protective layer. It's almost like a border control, if you will. And if you need a little bit more information on how do substances move across a cell membrane, you should click the video above now on diffusion. Now let's move into the next component of a cell, which is cytoplasm. Now, cytoplasm makes up the jelly-like liquid or the gel that fills a cell. And in this diagram over here, these arrows are pointing to this like blue liquid that is sitting in and around our cell. Now, besides being like the filling to our cell, cytoplasm plays a really important role in chemical reactions. Now, this means that it needs to consist of water, because water is a really important substance when it comes to chemical reactions and moving substances around. Now, you can also store things in the cytoplasm. Often there is materials that are dissolved or suspended in it, things like salts and carbohydrates and fats, and they sort of float around in the cytoplasm waiting to be stored or used. Now, besides that, as I mentioned, it is a liquid medium for chemical reactions to take place. And a lot of different, very vital reactions take place in cytoplasm. Things like cellular respiration can take place in the cytoplasm, protein synthesis as well. And so it really provides a workplace for chemical reactions to take place. Next, we're looking at the nucleus, which is the brains of the cell. It is the part of the cell that is telling everybody else what to do. It is a really important organelle, and it houses a lot of important information. Just to recap its overall structure, you'll notice it has a membrane on the outside of it. And then there are these little holes running alongside, and those are nuclear pores. It allows substances to go in and out of the nucleus. There is a filling in the nucleus, which we call nucleoplasm. And then sitting right in the center over here is a piece of chromatin network, which is also known as your DNA. And we're going to talk about that now as we look at the functions. So most importantly, as we run through the functions, we know that all living organisms have DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. This string of information is really important because it tells our cells what to do. It's like a recipe book or an instruction guide. Now, all cells, plant and animal, do have DNA, and it's in our nucleus. And as we said, the nucleus is a round organelle, and it's surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Now, some other functions linked to the nucleus, which are a little bit more advanced, is our nucleus contains our genetic information, which is like the recipes to make our bones, our muscle, our skin, and we inherit these, which means that we gain them from our parents. These can be things like our hair color, our eye color, but also things like our blood group and how we build muscle and grow hair. Now, each person's DNA is unique, and in order for you to have your DNA the way it is, you're going to be a mixture of your mother and your father's DNA. Now, moving on to vacuoles. Now, vacuoles are not always present in animal cells. They're temporary organelles, but I do need to mention them because they can appear for short periods of time. Unlike in a plant cell, vacuoles are permanent in a plant cell. In animals, they're temporary. They have short-term jobs. And you'll notice that in the diagram of the animal cell on the left-hand side here, if you look at all of the labels, you will notice that there is no label there for vacuoles. And that's because all of the vacuoles are very, very temporary, and they appear, they do their job, and then they dissolve. But what do they actually look like when we're using them? Well, a slightly distanced picture is this one over here. They're going to be fairly circular and actually quite small. This one's not to scale. It's a bit bigger than what it would be in person. And if we zoom in on it, it would look like this. And you can see it has a membrane on the outside, yet again, allowing substances to move in and out of it. Now, when vacuoles are in animal cells, they have a couple of important functions. Now, the living part of the vacuole is the membrane on the outside, which is this section over here. It is called the tonoplast. And essentially, vacuoles act as a storage unit. It's a place where we keep things until we need them. And that can be things like water, salt, sugar, even digestive enzymes, even wastes, things that we don't need. Now, in plant cells, the vacuole plays a really important role in giving the plant cell structure. But in animal cells, we really use them for temporary storage. And that's because animal cells and plant cells function very differently. Next on our list is vesicles. Now, often vesicles and vacuoles are confusing, and we confuse them. I want to clarify from the very beginning that vesicles are small membrane-bound sacs that contain fluid, and they are a type of vacuole. So think of vacuoles as being the broad name for all these little membrane-bound sacs that you can fill and you can store things in. Vesicles are a type of vacuole, and they can come in different sizes, and they can have different substances inside of them. So instead of just being used for storage, they have often a secondary function. So they're not just keeping water inside of them or storing sugars. They often secrete substances, and they play a really important role. Now, in the diagram here, there are a couple of different kinds of vesicles, and I'm going to focus in on a few of them. One of them is this one over here. It's called the lysosome. Now, to lyse means to cut. So the lysosome is responsible for the cell death. It's basically when the cell dies, this vesicle slowly secretes digestive enzymes that destroy the cell when it's time for the cell to die and then to be recycled. Another version of a vesicle is, if we look a little bit lower down here, there's something called a secretory vesicle, which if you look in the more advanced animal cell video, you will see that these vesicles are responsible for housing fats and digestive enzymes, and they often are substances that leave the cell. In other words, the difference between the lysosome is that the lysosome will only affect the cell on the inside, whereas these secretory vesicles are vesicles that have substances that are going to go outside the cell and affect things on the outer edges of the cell. Now, some examples of what will come out of a secretory vesicle could be something like saliva. So the difference there is really about where the liquid on the inside is going. Last but not least is mitochondria. Now, I'm sure everybody is very familiar with mitochondria, and you hear people saying like it's the powerhouse of the cell. Yes, it is. But as we go through high school biology, you will notice that it's not enough to just simply say it's the powerhouse. It actually has a name for its job, and we need to be very familiar with how it looks and how it does its job. Now, we always know that it's a mitochondria because it has a very defining structure, and it has this very folded set of membranes on the inside. And as you can see, they fold backwards and forwards over one another. So that's always the easiest way to tell. Now, mitochondria are found in both animal and plant cells. And so they both have these organelles, and they are really important in energy creation and transformation. So when we speak about what the mitochondria do, we are there for creating energy. Now, they can also act like a digestive system, in that they're going to take nutrients like your glucose, which is a sugar, and they're going to break it down and they're going to form energy. So mitochondria provide the energy for everything from digestion to movement to even speaking and breathing. That's all the mitochondria giving you energy. And a byproduct of also mitochondria doing their job is your body heat. Now, this particular process, even though we love to call it, the powerhouse of the cell, it has a function, a proper name, proper term. And the process of creating cellular energy is known as cellular respiration. And from this point onwards, it's very important at high school level biology to only refer to the function of mitochondria as cellular respiration. We can't use the powerhouse of the cell as an answer. Now, to sum up our lesson, it's important for us to look at the differences between animal cells and plant cells. It's a very common exam or test question where teachers like to see if you can tell the difference. And so I'm going to run through the differences. Again, if you need to watch the plant cell video, which I suggest you do because it does have a few extra organelles we haven't covered in this video, I suggest you go and have a look at it now. But let's have a look at the differences. So plant cells are rectangular in shape. They're often geometric, so square-shaped, whereas animal cells are irregular or round. There is a cell wall in plants where the cell wall is absent in animals. The nucleus in a plant cell often sits off to the side, which we can actually see if we look over here. There's the nucleus sitting off to the side, but in an animal cell, it's often in the center. And so if we have a look here, there it is sitting in the center. Now, mitochondria is present in a plant cell, as I said, but there are often fewer of them, whereas the mitochondria in animals are more numerous, and that does have to do with the energy requirements of plants versus animals. Then there's something called plastids that are present. You're familiar with chloroplasts. Yes, that's a plastid. So plant cells have chloroplasts, whereas animal cells do not have chloroplasts. Something called a centrosome, which we haven't touched on this video, but we do in the basics of plants, whereas centrosomes are present in animals. And these centrosomes, to refresh your memory, are there for cellular division, so making more cells. And last but not least, in plant cells, we have one large central vacuole, which you can see above here. It's this large blue structure over here. It takes up the majority of the cell. Whereas in the animal cell, it will have very small vacuoles, if any, and most of them actually disappear after time. So you can see there's one here in blue and there's another one over there, and they are temporary. Now, as always, I like to finish off my lessons with a terminology recap. Now, you can use all of these terms to create flashcards, which is the best way to study for any test and exam. If you're not sure how to do that, go and have a look at the link above now on how to make them and use them. So first of all, we looked at a cell membrane, which remember is the selectively permeable membrane that sits around our cell. And selectively permeable is the ability to decide what can and cannot enter the cell. Remember what substances come and go in the cell. Then we looked at the cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like filling inside of a cell. It's where chemical reactions take place, and it gives our cell a bit of shape, makes it firm. Then we looked at the nucleus, which is the brain of the cell. It tells the cell what to do. And that particular recipe book or instruction manual is written in the DNA. Now, the DNA is inherited from our parents. So we're a mixture of mom and dad, 50-50. And that DNA is going to tell us how to make skin and bone and how to grow. Then we looked at vacuoles, which are those membrane-bound organelles. In animal cells, they are temporary and small, and in plant cells, they're really quite large and permanent. And that outer membrane of a vacuole is called a tonoplast. It's a living part of the vacuole. Also is permeable selectively, so it decides what can go in and out of it. We looked at vesicles, which are specialized vacuoles. They have a very specialist job. They don't just store things. They also have the ability to secrete substances, which means basically substances can leave them and do a useful job. We looked at lysosomes, which are a type of vesicle, and they are there for digesting the cell or killing the cell when it's ready to die and it's an old cell. Then we looked at, lastly, the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, as we so affectionately refer to it. It is where we generate our energy. And remember, from now on, we are going to refer to it as cellular respiration. It's the site of cellular respiration, which is where we take sugar and we turn it into energy. Now, as always, if you have liked this video, please don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe, and please turn your notifications on in order to stay on track with your work this year. I post videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays on a range of topics from grade 8 to 12, as well as study methods for all other subjects to get you focused and ready for your exams. And as always, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you again soon. Bye.